Hey guys, I'm Tiger and I'm going to teach you about C++. I've been programming with several languages, some more than others, for 8.5 years, and recently I've decided to make a series on C++ so that people like you get a chance to learn C++. I've made 5 parts on C++ basics, so make sure you check them out after this video. Hit that like button if you've learned anything new in this video, and click the subscribe button if you want to see more videos on C++ in the future. So the first concepts that we're going to learn are the statements and program structure. So a statement is a type of instruction that makes a program perform a certain action. They are the most common type of instruction in C++ because they are the smallest unit of computation in C++. Most but not all statements in C++ end with a semicolon, but for now, all the statements that we're going to encounter end with a semicolon. So, like in these examples I have over here, each statement ends with a semicolon. A single statement in high-level language such as C++ can compile to multiple machine language instructions, and this is because higher level languages are written with lower level languages, and then higher level languages are more concise because they combine a bunch of statements in lower level languages into each statement in a higher level language. Now moving on to functions. So a function is a group of statements that execute sequentially. So each C++ program must have a main function. Like in our example over here, we have a main function. The execution starts from the first line in the main and usually ends at the end of the main function, but it may end before that. The certain cases when it ends before that, we're not going to talk about it in this video. Functions are typically written to complete a specific task. So a function named calculateGrade might calculate someone's grade from a bunch of test scores. I'll dive deeper into functions later in this series. So for an example program, I'm going to be using the classic Hello World program. So I'm using an example program here to let you have a feel of what the structure of a C++ program looks like. This is basically like one of the simplest programs you can ever write in C++, and the Hello World program is used to test whether a programming language is properly installed and to teach beginners about a language. So that's why I'm using this to teach you guys about C++. So I'll go over each line and explain what they do, but it's okay if you don't understand everything yet. So line 1 is a preprocessor directive, which indicates that we need to import the IOStream library, which is part of the standard library. A program can have more of these lines if they need more than one library, and anything we use from the standard library has the std in front of it unless we put using namespace std right after the preprocessor directives. I don't really like to put using namespace std because it makes the program less efficient. And then lines 3 to 6 is our main function, and then in there line 4 is the print statement where it prints out the hello world. So cout stands for character output, and then the 2 sign is the insertion operator, and then it lets us send letters and numbers into std cout, which will display them. And then line 5 is our return statement. So functions usually have a return statement, and when a program gets to a return statement, it exits the function, and then because this return statement is in the main function, it tells the program to stop. And then sometimes return statements have a value, and this value is called the return value, and then it's a way for functions to communicate a value back, so that if you have a bunch of code and then you call a function, the function can give you a value, and then you can use this value to do other stuff. But for the main function, this value tells the program what the exit code is, and the exit code tells the operating system whether the program encountered any errors. So 0 means everything is okay, and everything else means something went wrong. So like English, programming languages such as C++ have grammatical rules. And for programming languages, these rules are called syntax. The compiler is responsible for making sure you follow the basic syntax of C++ programs. So for example, if we remove the semicolon from line 4 in the Hello World program from the last slide, so if we remove the semicolon right here, then we'll get this error. So basically it says that it's missing a semicolon before the return. And then in the parentheses, there's a 5. 5 means that the error is encountered on line 5. The compiler sees line 4 and it doesn't see a semicolon, so it goes to line 5 to look for one. But then it sees return before it sees the semicolon, and it gives an error. And then that number is where the error is encountered, not necessarily where the mistake is made. So sometimes the mistake is on the line where the error is encountered, and sometimes it's on the previous line. So when you've encountered errors in your program, just make sure you check that line and also the previous line. So now moving on to comments. The comments are notes inserted in the code to help programmers understand the code. They're ignored by the compiler and they are only used to document the code. And there are two types of comments: single line and multi-line. So single line comments in C++ begins with a / symbol, and everything from the symbol to the end of that line is part of the comment. So over here we have this double slashes, and everything from here all the way to the end is part of the comment. So everything before that is not part of the comment, everything after that is part of the comment. And it's only for that line, so it doesn't affect the other lines. And then this type of comment is usually used to make a quick comment about a single line of code. Like for short comments, they are sometimes put right after a line of code. Like over here, it's put after this int A, it's put right after it. And then when the consecutive lines are commented, like over here, they're usually aligned to a tab stop. It makes everything look neater. And then when a comment or a line of code takes too much of a line, the comment is usually placed before the line of code. So like over here, this comment is pretty long, and then the statement is also pretty long. So then this comment is put right before the statement. So because this example is not a full program, it's not expected to be compiled by itself. If you wanted to compile, then you have to go back to our Hello World program and then basically replace this print statement with whatever statement you want to execute. Now moving on to multi-line comments. Multi-line comments are surrounded by a / symbol and an * symbol. And then because these comments are multi-line, the two symbols don't have to be on the same line. So like over here, everything between these two pairs of symbols are ignored. So basically this is part of the comment. And then these two symbols don't have to be on the same line. So everything from here all the way to here is part of the comment. And some programmers like to add asterisks at the beginning of each line in the comment to beautify it. Like over here, asterisks are added before each line. And then these comments cannot be nested. So like if you put a big comment here and you try to add a tiny comment in the middle, everything after here is going to be treated as outside of the comment. And then when the compiler sees it, it doesn't know what to do with it, so it just gives an error. However, it's okay to wrap single line comments in multi-line comments. Syntax highlighting helps identify what is part of the comment and what is not. So if you're using an IDE, and you have syntax highlighting, comments are usually gray or green, and then like over here you have this different colors, and then you can see that because this is a different color than the comments, then you know this is outside of the comments. Now comments are typically used for one of three things: describing what a library program or function does, describing how the code accomplishes its goal, and describing why the code is doing something. So for the first type, these are placed at the top of a file, right before a function. And then these comments help others understand what is being accomplished without going through the code. So over here, this one is placed right at the top of the file. Basically tells us what this file is for. It's basically an example of comments. And then we have another comment right over here. It's right before a function. And then it basically tells us what this function does. So other people can read that comment and don't have to look into your code to figure out what it does. For the second type, describe how the code accomplishes its goal. So these comments are placed within a library, program, or function. So we have this comment right here. And then it basically tells us how this function accomplishes its goal. These comments gives others an idea of how the code works without having to explain what each line does. And the last type is called statement comment, and they're placed next to individual statements like this comment right here. And these are useful when the code is too complex for others to understand easily. So like over here, this comment explains why we're using this particular statement. So statement comments should explain why the code is doing something. The bad statement comments usually describe what the code is doing and not why it's doing something. So if you feel like you need a comment to explain what a statement is doing, you should rewrite the statement and not add a comment. So sometimes we want to temporarily disable one or more lines of code, and this practice is called commenting out code. So we can add 2 forward slashes before a line of code to prevent it from running. We can add multiple of these to comment out a block of code, or you can use forward slash asterisk and asterisk forward slash to make it into a multi-line comment. Some editors support control plus slash or command plus slash to comment out one or more lines of code. And then there are 4 main reasons why you might want to comment out code. So the first one is if you're working on an uncompilable piece of code, you're still working on a part of the code and then it doesn't compile, so you need to comment it out to test something else first. And also it's for running without removing broken code. So if you have broken code that you're going to fix later, but it doesn't compile, so you can comment it out so you can fix it later. And then it's also useful for finding the source of error. So if you've encountered an error in your code and you don't know where exactly it is, you can comment out different lines of code until the error disappears. And then the last line you've commented out is basically where the error is. And because multi-line comments cannot be nested, commenting out multiple lines of code that contains multi-line comments can be tricky. So one solution is to surround the section of code with the preprocessor directives if, zero, and if. So over here we have our example. Now we have this line which is uncommented out, and we can comment it out by adding 2 forward slashes. We have a block of code which is not commented out, and we can comment it out by adding 2 slashes before each line. We can also uncomment it out by making it into a multi-line comment. And then we can also use preprocessor directives to disable a block of code when it has multi-line comments in there. But in this example, we don't. So thank you for watching, and make sure you fully understand each concept in this video. If you get stuck, remember to leave a comment about whatever you're stuck on so that someone can help you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.